Hello everyone, welcome to Your Questions on Astrology Answered, number 7 in my series. Been a while since I've been answering your questions and I'm more than happy to do so. Please keep the questions coming below this video so I can answer them in due course. Timestamps are below the video. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to sub below. I'm bringing you Vedic astrology on YouTube. And if the video is good for you, give it a thumbs up. Let's begin. First question from Jasmine Lee. Dear Gina, could you explain in detail how functional malefics and benefics work? Apart from being lords of the 6th, 8th and 12th, what are the possible factors that would enhance or reduce their malevolence? Example, Jupiter as a functional malefic in the first house. If benefic, it would be a great placement. It certainly would. But what if it is a functional malefic? Thank you, Jasmine, for this question. It's a very important question, actually, what are functional benefics and malefics, because all the planets have a certain nature. I'm going to go through this in a minute because we need a bit of detail to get to the point of your question. All planets have an actual benefic or malefic nature, but it changes according to the ascendant in your chart. This is a very special factor of the Vedic system. In fact, in the ancient Western system, it was also there. Because in modern astrology, so-called modern astrology, Western astrology, the benefic and malefic nature of the planet has been not truly understood. Therefore, predictions are not accurate and it's difficult to ever get to understand what's happening, what your karmas are. So I'm going to answer this in a little bit of detail. Let's understand, first of all, who are the natural benefics and natural malefics. This means this is the true nature of all of the planets. And this nature, I have to tell you, will never change. Saturn is always Saturn. Jupiter is always Jupiter. They never change their nature, even though they can act differently according to your ascendant. So, the natural benefics, which say go, enjoy this material world, are Jupiter, Venus, Moon, and Mercury. The natural malefics, who say stop, you've got some difficult karmas to burn here, are Shani, Mars, Rahu, and Ketu. And the Sun is a mixed effect. The Sun, you see, is giving us life, everybody. How could he not be anything but benefic? But don't forget, he is a planet of Dharma and righteousness. He is always supporting us, and therefore he will not tolerate the slightest deviation from truth, righteousness, and pure action. So in this age of Kali, he can be very punishing because we are always deviating even a small amount. And when he sees this, he will burn, he will punish. He can be very cruel, actually, and give immediate difficult karmas. But the point is that even though the natural nature of the planets never changes, what does change is how they work for you according to your ascendant. How can this be? Because your ascendant is you, and you are going to have a different reaction to all of the planets according to your ruling planets. Let's say you are Capricorn rising. Saturn is your lord. Now, Saturn has friends and enemies. The friends to Saturn are friendly to you, no matter who they are. And the enemies to Saturn are enemies or going to provide difficulties rather for you. So you have to understand that the nature of the planet won't change, but how they function for you, their functional nature will. So what are the circumstances where these natural benefics and natural malefics turn into functional benefics and malefics? I'll just briefly show you some of those factors and then run through the ascendants. So in general, we see that the functional benefics for you become the planet that lords your ascendant, your 4th house, your 5th house, your 9th house, and your 10th house. These lords will become benefic to you, but there are some exceptions. Now, the main houses that have this issue is the 4th and the 10th. The ascendant lord is always good for you, no matter who he is, Mars, Shani, Venus, anybody. He is your lord, your like nature. He will support you. And 7th house lord, no matter who he is, benefic, malefic, he will always be challenging because it is a Marika house. It can give very difficult circumstance. But the 4th lord and 10th lord, when they are benefic planets like Venus, Jupiter, Moon, they don't have the strength to push you through the difficult traumas and challenges of life. You see, these Kendra houses are very important. They are keeping you alive, keeping you going. They are the backbone, skeleton of your chart. So when this 4th lord, 10th lord is benefic by nature, he doesn't have the push. But if he is malefic like Mars, Shani, Rahu, lording 4th house, 10th house, he will become a functional benefic for your ascendant. He will give you that push you need to survive in those difficult times. Now, what about the functional malefics according to your ascendant? Which planets lording which houses can become malefic for you, difficult for you? They are the 2nd house lord, 3rd house lord, 6th, 7th, as I've said, 8th house lord, 11th, and 12th house lord. But it's not quite so straightforward, everybody, because each planet, well, apart from the sun and the moon, who just rule one sign, Leo, Cancer, every other planet rules 2 signs, right? Therefore rules 2 houses in your chart. So working out who is a functional benefic, a functional malefic, becomes a little bit checks and balances. But I've got them all worked out for you. Let me go through them. So for Aries ascendant, the functional benefics for you become the Sun, Jupiter, and your Lord Mars. Malefic functionally become Venus, Rahu, Mercury, and Shani. Venus, very dangerous because he rules 2 Mardaka houses. For Taurus ascendant, it's Rahu, Shani, Sun, Venus, and Mercury who are functionally benefic for you. Shani is not such a wonderful yoga karaka, by the way, for Taurus, because yes, he does rule 10th house and of course the 9th house, Trine house, Kendra, but 9th house is Badaka, obstacle house, so Rahu can be more helpful. But the malefics are Jupiter, Moon, and Mars. For Gemini ascendant, it's your Lord Mercury, Venus, a great friend to Mercury, Rahu, and Shani, all the friends together who are the functional benefics. Malefics for you are Mars, Sun, and Jupiter. For Cancer ascendant, it's Mars, a great benefic to you, Moon, and Jupiter. Moon, of course, your Lord, who are functionally benefic. Malefics are Mercury, Rahu, Shani, and Venus. For Leo rising, it's your Lord the Sun, Mars, and Jupiter, who are benefics for you. The functional malefics will become Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and Rahu. For Virgo rising, your 2 lords, of course, are Mercury and Rahu. They become benefic to you, as does Venus. Malefic is the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter. For Libra rising, it's Venus, Saturn, Rahu, and Mercury who are the functional benefics for you. The malefics become Mars, Moon, Sun, and Jupiter. For Scorpio ascendant, your Lord Mars, of course, and Moon, Sun, and Jupiter who become functionally benefic for you. Malefic, however, become Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. For Sagittarius Lagna, it is Jupiter, your Lord, the Sun, and Mars who are benefic for you. Malefic planets are Venus, Saturn, and Mercury. Capricorn ascendant, the functional benefics are Saturn, Mercury, Venus, and Rahu. And malefic are Moon, Jupiter, and to some extent Mars. Aquarius rising, it's Shani, Rahu, your lords who are benefic to you, Mercury and Venus. Malefic is the Moon, Jupiter, and Mars. Finally, the last sign, Pisces. For you, it's Jupiter, your Lord, Moon, and Mars who are benefic. Malefic are Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Rahu. By the way, everyone, Ketu is always malefic. He can never be a functional benefic because he is malefic to material nature and only benefic to liberation. If any planet wasn't mentioned in your sign, it's because that for you has become a neutral planet, neither benefic nor malefic. Now, back to Jasmine's question. Jasmine asked, what if Jupiter is in the ascendant of a chart for which he is a functional malefic? I'm going to use Taurus Lagna, Libra Lagna, these ascendants, Taurus and Libra, because for them, Jupiter is a functional malefic. Now, for all ascendants, Jupiter rising in the chart is good because Jupiter is protection for the chart. Jupiter is the Jiva. It gives protection for the life, especially Digbala, first house, because he is protecting you, giving you longevity, giving you health, giving you many good factors in life. What happens in this instant is that Jupiter definitely brings you benefits, wealth, education, success, confidence with this position. But because he is a functional malefic ruling for Taurus, 8th house, 11th, for Libra, 3rd house, 6th house, he will bring difficulties in his Mahadasha period. He will bring you benefits, but conflicts and some losses together with them. So, for example, for Taurus rising, Jupiter here as a functional malefic rules the 8th house. He can bring you business success, wealth, inheritance, but family loss, stress with your partner, business partner stress, all of these things come with the gains. Gains also 11th house, but at the same time, some sort of quarrels and disputes come as well. So there's always major change coming by this 8th, 11th factor, so that even though you can get these gains, wealth, education, they disrupt your life as well as bring you these gains. Libra is very good for business. Jupiter rising can make you a superb business person, or you can get great success in your relationships, but at the same time you get difficulties with your siblings, with your health, with co-workers, litigation, quarrels, contention. It's never easy or peaceful when you have Jupiter rising and you are Libra Lagna. In a nutshell, then, it's really quite straightforward. The functional benefics in your chart, those planets, no matter where they are placed, well placed, ill placed, will bring you some benefit, some gain, even from difficult circumstance. And the functional malefics, even if superbly placed, like Jupiter rising in the chart, will give you contention and challenges, especially in Mahadasha of that planet. And yes, the same applies in your Virgo charts also. Let's have a look at the chart of Jonny Depp to see this working. Yes, it's Jonny Depp yet again. I love to use his chart on my channel because you know what? It's such a powerful and fascinating chart. And of course, his life is interesting. He's just been through all of this litigation, etc., disruption, and all of these court cases live on television. Well, what Mahadasha could he be in but a functional malefic? Definitely. And he is. He's in Mercury Mahadasha since 2019. And Mercury is a functional malefic for Cancer. And it's with another functional malefic for Cancer, Venus, conjunct in a very strong house, 11th house. But despite this strong placement, the functional malefic factor is definitely evident in his life. And of course, Mercury rules the 12th house of loss of money, loss of reputation, 3rd house of court cases, quarrel, motion, action, contention, warfare. Karika for the 3rd house is Mars. Mars means contention. So all the fighting, all the quarrel, all the live television cases, all of that, it's all to do with this maleficence of this Mercury, which is a functional malefic. But he's come through it, you're saying. Why is that? It's because in the D9 chart, Mercury is a functional benefic. He has Virgo rising. Mercury is benefic in that chart, and it is placed in the 5th house with Jupiter and Venus. So he's got support. He's come through it, but still the contention and the tension is going to continue in his life, I would say, right up until the end of this Mahadasha in 2036. Not looking too detailed at the D9, but it's possible that there may be some new relationship coming into his life, and that may help him in some way. Don't want to go into a too detailed analysis, just trying to show you that Jonny Depp's malefic, very malefic Mercury here, even though well placed, has brought nothing but difficulty. So functional malefics, there isn't any way to mitigate them except to see if they are still malefic in various Virgo charts. Next question from Carrie Jean. Will you ever do videos including Uranus, Pluto and Neptune conjunctions? No. No, Carrie Jean, I won't be doing that on this channel. But let me tell you why that is, and thank you for your question. I'm glad you asked the question, actually, Carrie Jean, because I have had a few comments on my channel, various videos, where's Uranus, Neptune, Pluto? Or to speak of some other guys I've never heard of, basically, since I've been leaving behind the Western system. Look, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto do not carry your karmas. When I'm doing conjunction videos, Carrie Jean, everybody, I am looking at your karmas. What are the karmas carried? What are the punishments? What are the rewards coming to you from these conjunctions? What have you done? Why have you got this conjunction? What can you do to mitigate all of these difficulties? Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are not grahas. They do not carry your karmas. You see, in the ancient Vedic system, we understand the principle of graha. A planet is not the same as a graha. In fact, Pandit Sanjay Rath doesn't even like to use the word planet. He prefers just to use graha. Graha is the visible planets out there to our naked eye, up to shiny Saturn. See, a graha has a spiritual aspect. It's not just a rock, a formation of physical energy, rock or planet, floating around in space with a gravitational field, etc., etc. No. A graha is actually a spiritual being which is controlling our minds. And this is a very deep understanding. And when you see Mahadasha unfold, when you see how your mind changes in Mahadasha, you will understand what's going on. Transits have similar factor, but they are much more temporary. In addition, of course, the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, or any other you care to find out, are not going to have any say in true Jyotish because they do not rule nakshastras. They have nothing to do with Mahadasha. There's no Uranus time period, Neptune Mahadasha, Pluto, Chiron Mahadasha. They're not to do with the deep karmas manifesting in our life in this deeply spiritual and magical system of Jyotish. So no, we don't need to use them at all. But still, people will say, but I've got Venus, Uranus in my chart and I've got crazy relationships. Or I've got perhaps Venus, Pluto, and I'm obsessive by nature, all of these things. It's not coming from those planets. They are transpersonal. They have nothing to do with your karmas. So what's happening is what you think is coming from there is definitely to be seen. Largely, I've seen through Rahu and Ketu. I've seen many charts over the years, Western charts, of people with all sorts of outer planet conjunctions to their personal planets, and whatever is seen there is not really coming from those outer planets at all. The difficulties they are experiencing in, let's say, Venetian factors, money factors, relationship factors, can be seen largely through Rahu Ketu and definitely in the Varga chart. So they don't have any place whatsoever in true Jyotish in Vedic astrology. However, not to disappoint everybody, I will probably do a video sometime soon on Uranus, Neptune, Pluto in my secret series, looking at what they could be doing by transit. They are transpersonal generational planets and they do affect world government, etc. In some way, they seem to be having some impact in this Kali Yuga, but they won't show you your karmas. How many times have I got to say it? They won't help you in your birth chart analysis. So basically, even though I know there's many softwares out there, Vedic astrology softwares that have Uranus, Neptune, Pluto in, wipe them out. They are not helpful. They are a complete distraction. Next question from Yana Popova. I love your videos. They help me a lot. Thank you. Glad to hear that. Do you mind sharing what are the effects of Rahu entering the house of natal Ketu, especially in the 9th house? Interesting question. Let's have a look. Thank you for the opportunity, you see, because I want to talk about Rahu Ketu for some time, transits of Rahu Ketu. It's very important to understand how malefic Rahu Ketu are. So, sorry to shock you. I guess you weren't expecting me to come down so hard on this, but this is the fact. You see, people are afraid of Shani, Mahadasha of Shani, Sati, help me. But hold on a minute. It's Rahu who is the most malefic. Rahu offers us so much shiny, gorgeous stuff, which turns out to be nothing but ashes, dust, and basically disgust in our life in the end. Takes us to a very dark place. It's because Rahu's purpose is to keep us in this world. Ketu's is to take us out. They are never easy. They represent a churning of our life in very disturbing ways by transit. You see, Saturn's purpose is just to bring us back our past life deeds, and we are afraid simply of ourselves when we are afraid of Saturn. But Rahu is the new. Rahu is the cause of rebirth, not Saturn. Saturn just gets you here because you've already done things. But Rahu is here to grab you, to make sure that you get lots of other dreadful karmas made out in this lifetime. Rahu is serving Shani. Rahu is like Shani, as they say. So Rahu makes Shani's job possible. If it wasn't for Rahu, none of us would be here. By the way, when I'm talking about Rahu, I'm including Ketu because they are one axis. Rahu is the head of the snake and Ketu is the tail. So as Rahu and Ketu are transiting round your chart in this way, and you can see it in all Varga charts as well, if you want to go so deep, you can definitely see that. You can see it from your ascendant most clearly, but also from the moon. Ascendant preferably though. Rahu will definitely open up all sorts of new doors for you. He will endlessly attempt to basically draw you into the making of new karma. So you have to be very cautious what Rahu brings you. What Jupiter brings you is a different matter. That can be helpful. But what Rahu brings you looks the most shiny, the most perfect. Your dreams have come true. But is it really the case? So let me show you how to really analyze Rahu Ketu transit. First factor is the houses of your chart, D1 chart from Ascendant, as I've said. Where is Rahu? Where is he transiting? He's going retrograde and he brings karmas in a very specific way, as I'll show you. Please include something I've not mentioned very much before, but hopefully a new video coming up on it. The houses of the Mahadasha chart. You see, not just your birth chart, but your Mahadasha is your new superimposed chart now. So let's say you're in Jupiter Mahadasha. Put Jupiter in your D1 as the first house and see the chart from that. Where is Rahu and Ketu from your Mahadasha Lord? Where is he transiting? That will impact you equally to the birth chart transit. And as you've been asking me, Yana, specifically the transit to the natal planets, including to his own placement. First of all, Rahu transits through the chart. Well, actually going this way. Even I did it wrong there. Rahu is retrograde. So the most important transit of Rahu is not so much when he comes conjunct to natal Rahu in terms of cycle. Cycles of your life start when Rahu's in the first house ascendant, not when he is conjunct Rahu wherever he is. That's an important transit, but it's not new cycle. So new cycle, rebirth in your life, new opportunities for entanglement in new karmas happen when Rahu comes into the ascendant of your chart. But the meaning of the houses will be completely different to the normal meaning because Rahu goes retrograde. Rahu in your 12th house is second to his own transit. Rahu in your 11th house acts like a third house transit, 10th house, 4th house transit, and so on, until he comes virtually 18 years later into the second house of your chart, the 12th house to his own beginning transit. So second house is a sort of dissolution phase in any Rahu transit. By the way, please check on my channel for the current Rahu transit, which is in Aries, and see how it's working for you in your chart. I will also link that below. In addition to this, of course, there is a Rahu return. Rahu comes back to his natal position in your chart, wherever that is, at age 18, 36, 54, and 72. And what you asked me on the video specifically, Rahu transits Ketu 9 years after that at 27, 45, 63, and 81. This is the reverse node transit. The Rahu return coming back to his natal place at these ages is never easy. It pushes you into the new. Even if you don't want to go there, it pushes you through the door. It always brings some difficult circumstance which you try to resist a little bit, but which you eventually have to accept. Rahu transit Ketu slightly differently. Ketu is the past. So when Rahu gets to Ketu, he'll bring back past life situations very strongly at these ages in your life. You will see a place you've been before, lived before, somebody you've known before. You will feel drawn to a certain situation obsessively, just pulled in by this force. Okay, this is Rahu transit Ketu. They are both most challenging. Let me show you a really good example, everyone, of both of these transits. Once again, it's Jonny Depp, but this time with Vanessa, the partner with whom he had 2 children. It's actually quite startling. Let's have a look. So here we have the charts, D1, D9 of Vanessa Paradis. I think that's how you say her name. The beautiful French singer with whom Jonny Depp had a long-term relationship. We're looking specifically at the year 2011. In 2011, her relationship with Jonny Depp was definitely on the rocks. Amber Heard was in his life at that time. Very destabilizing. Now, it's a Rahu return because Rahu was transiting Sagittarius in 2011 in her D1. Also Rahu return in her D9 the following year, 2012, when they officially split, when Rahu is conjunct to Rahu in the D9 chart. Of course, she didn't actually want the relationship to end. Apparently, she was heartbroken. She wrote a very poignant song at that time about her difficulty splitting from Jonny Depp. But you see, Rahu return is always pushing you into this new direction, whether you want to go or not. And apparently now she has a new relationship. By the way, for those of you who've just noticed on the screen, she was definitely in her Ketu Mahadasha during 2011, Ketu being rising in her D9 chart. There is loss, there is difficulty, but it's the churning of Rahu and Ketu, which none of us can avoid. Now to Jonny Depp's chart, 2011, Rahu's in Sagittarius, but look, it's with his Ketu. The exact opposite to what Vanessa's going through. Vanessa's got the Rahu return. Jonny Depp has got the reverse transit, Rahu to Ketu. Exactly what you were asking me about in the question. So an equally churning time for him, but this time he's pulled compulsively into the past life karma of Ketu by Rahu. Rahu Ketu, as I've just said, brings up the past. So this is when he's getting deeply involved with Amber Heard. It's pulling him in. He can't resist it. It's some unfinished past life karma, most definitely. And just like in Vanessa's chart, in the D9, it's equally showing it's a Rahu conjunct Ketu reverse transit once again, because Ketu Rahu are Vagotama in the same signs, D1 and D9. So Rahu in Sagittarius is conjunct to Ketu in the D9 chart. And of course, you notice, of course, Mars is with this axis. So this churning relationship situation is passionate, forceful, and contains the potential for, let's just say, quite a lot of disturbance. A quite deep question now from Rukita Tata. I recently came across your channel and I loved it. Thank you. As you said in other video, everything is fated. But my question is, what does surrendering to God mean and how to get out really? Also, let's say a rich person does more charity than a poor person and he builds up more good karmas as he can. So he will always have an advantage over a poor person. Isn't then having bad karmas to begin with will keep making us do more bad karmas when fated and the cycle goes on? I know what you're saying and it's a very good point. And then would remedies like fasting actually work when life is supposed to just happen? Or will the chart show that we would be doing remedies? Thank you for that question. It's a very deep one actually and very important. So let's unpick your question. First of all, the idea that if you are rich, you can give more charity. Well, of course you can, but it doesn't mean that you get more good karma. Not at all. Because it's proportion to what you have. There's that little story, isn't there, in the Christian Bible about the widow's mite, but where this poor widow gives everything she has. It's a mite. Mite was a very tiny, insignificant amount of money then, but she gave it all, whereas this rich man gave tons and tons of money, but she attained heaven, it was said. He did not, because she sacrificed everything she had, even though it was tiny. So it's not the amount you give, it's how much you give relevant to what you have. It's the amount of sacrifice involved. The next part of the question is that if everything is already preordained, then we are already either going to do remedies or not. They are either going to work or not. What's the point of it? Once again, that's a very common misunderstanding of Prarabdha karma. It's true what you say, because the Prarabdha karmas are set. They have to be set. We are here to encounter certain circumstances, and it is intricately connected to every other living entity, every single person and living being we will encounter in this lifetime. Every karma is like a mesh, impossible to untangle. Only the Supreme can change it, because it has to change for everybody else as well. And this, of course, is where remedies come in, where we hope to mitigate some of the effect of our difficult karma. You know, I don't know anybody's ever come for a remedy for their good karma, but really we need a remedy for that as well, because that good karma can take us into difficult reactions. Every reaction we have is the power of our freedom. Just like our past life is shown by our circumstances now, our future is shown by how we react to our present karmas. And because it's so hard to get our reactions just right in this age of Kali, where there's so much stress on us every moment, and we are overtaken by these modes of material nature like anger and fear and all of these difficulties potent in this age, that is why surrendering to God is the easiest thing and yet the most difficult thing, which will change everything for us. A good example of that is Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. He didn't want to fight, but he fought, as a servant of Krishna. He just picked up the bow and shot off all of those arrows without hatred, without any negative thought at all, just doing it as his duty. So surrender to God means doing everything which we have to do, but in a surrendered way, not hoping to get result from it, not grasping, not having attachments. So it's important to definitely try to get this attitude in your life, because it's the only way to get out, as you say, to stop the endless wheel of samsara, birth and death. Another factor is remedies. Everybody wants a remedy for the difficult karmas they are facing in this life. Everybody thinks that if I could just mitigate it, I would be happy. And as I've said, nobody really wants to get a remedy for their good karmas, because they think that's going to lead them to peace and happiness in life. But no karma, no reaction here, good or bad, is going to give us that peace in our heart unless we are surrendered to the Supreme. That's the actual truth of it. And of course, even if you do mitigate these difficult karmas that everybody wants to escape from naturally, you can't escape from them forever, because inevitably the weight of that karma has to be paid back. That's Shani's job. If he doesn't come to you this life, he will come to you next. So it's probably better just to face whatever has to be faced now, but do it in a surrendered and happy attitude. It's our attitude that determines everything. Which is the reason why on this channel, when I give you remedies, I give you, or try to give you remedies that will help everybody to make their mind more peaceful and get you involved in good karmas, because this will inevitably lead to happiness even while you are doing these remedies, and they are open to everybody. It's not for the rich, it's not for the poor, it's for everybody. And of course, we can never burn all of our karmas because we're continually on this wheel of samsara. We can't get out, as you say, because we are on to another cycle of birth and death inevitably. That is why the only way is to surrender this whole ball game into Krishna's hands, as he says, Bhagavad Gita, into God's hands, whatever form you worship him in. You have to surrender. It's a very simple, though sometimes people find challenging thing, to give up false ego, but that is the way to peace and happiness in this life. Finally, a question from Mega Beastly Bro. Enjoy your content greatly, miss. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the content. Would you happen to have wisdom about Sakata Yoga? I do have at least some information to give you, and I hope you'll find it useful. Let's go. Sakata Yoga then takes place when Jupiter is in the 6th house or the 8th house from the moon in your chart. It affects you also when Jupiter transits in the 6th or 8th from your moon. You may have heard it's also when Jupiter is in the 12th to the moon, but that's not the case, because that's a 2-12 relationship, not 6-8. So what's difficult here is that these two planets of nourishment are in a Dustana relationship. The moon is going 6 houses to this Jupiter 6th house, and Jupiter 8 houses back to the moon. The moon is going 8 houses to this Jupiter 8th house, and Jupiter 6 houses back to the moon. 6-8 is always disturbing. Every planet dislikes anything which is 6th and 8th to itself. So the moon mind is not in harmony with Jupiter factors in your life. That's the very basic karma. So to really judge this, you have to see the houses ruled by Jupiter in your chart when they are in the 6th and 8th house. That will give you more indication of the difficulties which your mind is finding it difficult to accept. But one thing to be aware, having planets in the 6th, 7th, 8th from the moon in a way is good. It's the high tide bringing you all of the blessings towards the moon. I've spoken about this in my moon chart video. Check that out to understand more about how the whole moon chart works in your life. I will post that below. But why are people so afraid of Sakata Yoga then? It's because it's supposed to give poverty, to give lack of resources, because Jupiter is wealth, of course, and the moon is not in a happy angle towards Jupiter. But I promise you, it doesn't give that without other indications. No one yoga in your chart is going to give a definite result like that. You have to see houses ruled by Jupiter, and there's so much else to see. But there is instability and there is a problem with money, or which I've seen, I will discuss in a minute. But Many rich, famous people have this Sakata Yoga, obviously. In fact, Vanessa Paradis on this video I've just been talking about has this as well. Check many celebrity charts. You will definitely find lots of people with Moon and Jupiter in this 6-8 angle. Well, let's go through some of the problems which you may encounter though when you have this Moon-Jupiter angle and what you can do about them. The first one is, funnily enough, weight problems and eating issues. Moon is nourishment. Moon in this 6-8 to Jupiter can actually give malnourishment. You can be eating lots of food, but it's not nourishing you. You need to get diet advice and watch your weight. It can be going up and down and fluctuating, causing health issues. The next thing is money in your life. You see, Moon Jupiter with these angles means that money is not being taken care of properly. You can be a spendthrift. You can pay no attention to your finances. You can just be happy-go-lucky, or you can be clinging on to it but afraid to let it go. There's no median ground. I would advise anybody with this Moon Jupiter Sakata Yoga to get financial advice. Get someone else to take care of your finances, but make sure it's somebody that you trust. Which brings me on to the next problem. Sakata Yoga people surround themselves with lots of other people, but are they really there for them? Very often at a difficult time in your life, sometimes Moon Mahadasha, sometimes Jupiter, one or the other, you find yourself in a stuck situation, and then you realize people you thought would be there for you are actually not there. Those you actually thought were your friends are not your friends. So choose friends with discrimination and wisdom if you have these Moon-Jupiter angles. You see, I've seen this Moon-Jupiter 6-8 to actually give lots of friendship, lots of people, lots of socializing, lots of interaction. But is it deep and is it meaningful? Less is definitely more when it comes to finding people to support you in life if you have this Moon-Jupiter connection. Very often also your education ruled by Jupiter can be disturbed by this. It's hard to get your education done, to steady your mind, to fix on education until you are ready for it. And very often that is later in life rather than earlier. But later in life I've seen Sakata Yoga people get successful education, most definitely. Sakata Yoga then is in essence a combination for instability in your life, many ups and downs, many changes, many toing and froing, because your mind is not fixed on what it wants. And even when you get the good stuff in life, you are unsure if it's really what you want anymore. It's this sort of factor. Of course, it's in Jupiter and Moon Mahadasha, either one, Jupiter Mahadasha or Moon, or both, that you will see some of this instability manifest. But don't be afraid of Sakata Yoga. You can prepare for this. You can have definite wealth in your life. Just take care of it properly. You can have many friendships, relationships. Just choose wisely. That's the most important advice. It is nothing to be afraid of in itself. And now, what about the transit? Every 12 years, everybody will have Jupiter transit in the 6th house to the moon and the 8th house to the moon. It's only working from the moon. This is a period of instability also. Sometimes there are relationship changes. I've definitely seen this. Financial changes, job losses sometimes. Big circumstances in your life become unstable. It can be disturbing. Just go with the flow of it. Accept that something is not working and needs to be transformed because your mind is not truly happy with these particular factors in your life, and that is why they are having disturbances. Check out the playlist on your screen right now for other questions on astrology, but of course post your questions below and sub to my channel if you're new. Goodbye for now and God bless everyone.